BBC Big Star 1000 with a new installment of Revolutions. Should have been a live video last night, and what happened was yesterday I hung out with Anthony Campo at his flat in Brunswick in Melbourne, and I didn't leave his apartment until 10:30 at night. Normally I start the live session here at 10, so it was already too late to get it started. We played lots of records and we had a great day, and you know, shit happens. That's what happens. People do stuff, and so I thought instead, since I had a crate of records that I was going to talk about, I'll just do a normal video, and then I'll explain why I didn't appear. And then just letting you know that next Saturday I will try and do the normal live session. Anyway, these are the records that I played this week, some records. These are the records that I played with Campo yesterday, because that would require another video entirely. These are just records that I played this week here in my house. Let me just start by saying that what a week it's been for me personally, as France became world champions on Sunday. So it was kind of mind-blowing. I mean, it's the second time in my lifetime that it happens, and it was brilliant. And so, as a form of celebration, or like to demonstrate my national pride, and I don't know if anyone should have national pride. It's kind of toxic at times, but I played a whole lot of French records, just to celebrate. Excuse me whilst I have a sip of tea. I know it can be annoying, but I promise not to slurp. I'll try my best. And so in here I've got about 10 French records, and then I've got other records. So this morning I revisited Logos by Igor Vakovic. Igor Vakovic is an avant-garde composer. Sorry, oops, this is for avant-garde composer. I think he's a native of Nice in the south of France, and the name doesn't really look French, does it? Igor Vakovic. It sounds Russian, but I think that's his family were of Russian origin. And this is an avant-garde piece, which could be slightly inscrutable, but you just have to give it a few goes for choir and magnetic tape. Yes, very interesting, and yeah, I mean, it's avant-garde composition. What can you say? It's not exactly something that you can play casually. You have to just focus, and if you like things like I don't know, I've been talking about Penderecki recently, and that kind of school of composition, even to things like Pierre-Henry and things like that, you've got some crossover there. In a completely different style, a really funky soundtrack by François de Roubaix. François de Roubaix is the French Lalo Schifrin, or the French Ennio Morricone. He was a very prolific soundtrack composer. He died very young, scuba diving. But this is probably his best soundtrack, really. An orchestra. And I actually watched this movie this week. Well, yeah, I've got a box set of this is Louis de Funès, the actor there, and I've got a box set of his movies. And I thought, just one evening I just sat down and I watched this movie, rewatched this movie. Not a great solo movies, but the soundtrack is very, very well. If you like funky soundtracks, if you're on the lookout for a really, really funky soundtrack in the style of, I don't know. Now, I wasn't going to say Bullet or something like that, because it's a different kind of funky, but Oh, just listen to it. Le Orchestre by François de Roubaix. So I played this. I played this Ellie and Jack No record. I think I talked about it in the live session last time. Jack No was the main man in the Stinky Toys, a French punk band, and this is an electro pop record mixing electronics. Jack No does a lot of electronics. Plays guitar, keyboard, bass, synth, percussion, and then Elie Medeiros. She was a French Uruguayan singer. She's still alive, I think. And you know, I think there were I think there were a couple. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I've got the impression. And so they made this, and they made a couple of records together. This is wonderful. Boomerang. This is from 1981, I think, or thereabouts. Okay, some more French music, more recent music from France. This is Forever Pavot, La Pantoufle. So Forever Pavot is a French musician called Émile Sornin, his real name, and he was discovered by the Born Bad label from Paris, and they've put all of his records out. The first record is fantastic. It's very much in the vein of Alain Goraguer, François de Roubaix, and also Gainsbourg, Serge Gainsbourg. It's got this kind of, but I'm not talking about the later Gainsbourg. I'm talking about the 60s kind of 60s Gainsbourg soundtrack music. And this here is more sort of in the vein of that. You can see he's a devoted fan of François de Roubaix. I was talking about François de Roubaix a second ago. This guy is his spiritual child of François de Roubaix. Fantastic record. Very funky. If you like things like the Planète Sauvage, Fantastic Planet, the soundtrack, you know, you're in for a treat. It's a great record. Came out last year. A sip. Here is a little-known French female singer, Dominique Grange, and this is a main album, Hammam Palace. She's a bit like a French Patti Smith of sorts. This French rock with you know, slightly political lyrics. Not the greatest album in the world, but you know, if you're into that kind of thing, I mean, more suitable for a French person because lyrically speaking, I don't think, you know, a non-French speaker would, you know, have as much enjoyment as someone like me does for this. This was released in 1981. Dominique Grange. It's okay. This next album would appeal to more people, however. Antoine Thomé, Les Chants du Cœur. Antoine Thomé, here he is. Yes, he's a French composer, singer-songwriter, and the interesting thing about Antoine Thomé is he was very into North African and also Eastern European musical traditions, and so his music is kind of a fusing between French folk music, sort of Moroccan folk, you know, and also a lot of like sort of a Balkan style music. And this is his first record, and it's on the wonderful label Moshe Naim, which is a wonderful alternative label from the 70s in France. I have several releases on Moshe Naim, and it's a very collectible label. And this is not a cheap album, but it's a fantastic record. And you know, everything I said before, very like a mix of ideas of folk traditions, and very rhythmic, very percussive. And also the interesting thing about François Thomé is he sings some songs in an invented language, much like Magma did. So there's this sort of Zool quality to it. Okay, let's stay on France. An absolute, mainstay of French music, Nino Ferrer. This is a progressive rock record. Nino Ferrer was a French progressive pop, psychedelic pop, progressive pop singer. He released a string of really classic albums like Metronomie and Nino and Radia, which is very, very collectible. This is very collectible as well. This is an original press on I can't remember the label now, but it doesn't matter. You can imagine what label. No, it's a kind of a Riviera. That's right, Riviera. Here is Nino Ferrer himself. Classic. And there's a signature there, and I've always wondered if it was a real Nino Ferrer signature, but I haven't gone as far as checking. This album is a progressive rock record, of French progressive pop rock, and it's recorded with English musicians. Actually, he has a cast of English musicians, so it gives that sort of more authentic kind of progressive sound. The wonderful Jeanne-Marie Sans. This woman is just so beautiful. Look at her. I mean, that is just beauty. In my opinion, that's maybe because maybe of the brown hair and all. It reminds me of my dear departed darling. But maybe we all have a certain type of look that we like, and maybe that's what appeals to me in there. But Jeanne-Marie Sans, this is a wonderful French singer-songwriter album. Jeu de mots. Nothing extraordinary again, but nice. And I could still discover for us. It's beautiful. It's from the 1970s. A couple more French records. Two more, if you haven't switched me off yet. This masterpiece, Brigitte Fontaine et Areski Vouenou on Sarava, original pressing. Beautiful. Actually, no, this is not an original press, it's a second press. Unless it's a second press from the time. This is a great avant-folk record by the dynamic duo of Brigitte Fontaine and Areski Belkacem. If you haven't discovered them yet, you're in for a treat. Especially L'Incendie. This is a later release. It's probably from the very late 70s. There's no year there. I don't know. I'm just inventing things as 77. Yeah, so yes, later than the other records. And then the last French record I've got here is a progressive electronic record, Equinox, by the great Jean-Michel Jarre. Amazing. I mean, it's a very mainstream record in France that was played. I remember being a young kid, and I remember hearing those songs on TV, on the radio. It was very, very, very popular. Jarre, an Australian press of that record. Continuing with, another bunch of non-French records. Terry Riley, No Man's Land, a fantastic minimal meets Eastern traditions. So it's got sitar by Krishna Brat on sitar. So Terry Riley plays keyboards and all sorts of delightful droning instruments, and this is a record that was only released in Switzerland, and hence I bought it in Switzerland last time I hung out with Christophe. Christophe, if watching this, I'm sure you remember this. We were in Basel in the record store and in Atlantis, I think, and we bought this. It's fantastic. Terry Riley. Some US psychedelia. Here is the CA Quintet with A Trip Through Hell. It's the name of the record. This is a classic psychedelia record. What could you... I mean, things like Country Joe and the Fish and the Wizards from cancers and maybe a bit of love come to mind when you describe this. It's got a great, you know, acid, like lots of acid guitars, like really fuzzy, and some amazing fuzzed out vocals. It's a great record. It's a must-have. I played a pair of Paul McCartney records. I absolutely love solo McCartney. I think I've professed my love for Ram a few times, and this time I went for other records in Ram. I revisited Ben on the Run a little bit, which you all know and maybe love or maybe don't. It's a great record, Ben on the Run. And I also revisited McCartney 1, which is a lovely little record. It's not groundbreaking or anything. I mean, it's got some really nice songs, but I think it's more like it feels more like a demo, you know, in some ways. But I really love, you know, things like Maybe I'm Amazed and Junk, and that would be something, you know, beautiful, beautiful album. Some cosmic electronic German music. I played Rubicon yesterday morning, I think it was. It's a beautiful, Deutsche Kosmische Musik LP by the Edgar Froese led bunch. You know, lots of synth and, you know, waves of Moog and what have you. It's a great record. And since I am talking about cosmic music, I also rediscovered my copy of Popol Vuh's In den Garten Pharos. Yes, what a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful album. You know, trippy, cosmic. One of the best examples of that sort of, when people don't know what krat rock is, and you know, like this is really one that you can, you know, pinpoint. That's, you know, a genre-defining record. I mean, Florian Fricke is a, you know, a genius, absolute genius. Speaking of genius, the wonderful. Actually, I've got another krat rock record here that I played as well, which I'll just kill two birds one stone. Mobius and Planck, Connie Planck and Mobius from Cluster. Yeah, a nice record. You can't play it every day, but it's nice. It's, you know, glitchy and yeah, kind of like dubby. It's a good record on Sky. So let's go talk about a genius, David Byrne, the Catherine Wheel. This is like this is very much like a Talking Heads record, very much. Like if you've exhausted all the Talking Heads records and you want another one that you haven't heard about, this one is most definitely one to go for. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. The Catherine Wheel. It was a ballet music, which was it was his girlfriend Twyla Tharp was the name. The girl. And it was ballet music that he wrote. Some French avant-garde classical, Francis Poulenc, sextet for piano and woodwind quintet, trio for piano, oboe and bassoon. This I found in the thrift store for $1. Wonderful, wonderful, you know, avant-garde classical music. Say no more. I played River. River is a masterpiece by Terry Reid. There he is. The almost singer in Led Zeppelin. I know that's the story that people tell, but you know, I'm glad he wasn't a singer in Led Zeppelin. I think he did much better there. Yes, kind of like a folk funk record, if you will. Folk funk, you know, like folk in sort of spirit, but very kind of funky. I spoke about this Heikki Salmento last time. I won't talk about it much more. Watch my live stream. You Finnish pianist, and this is a sort of a spiritual jazz mass from New York. One of my top 10 singer-songwriter records. Absolutely amazing. The fantastic Bill Fay, Time of the Last Persecution. If you've never heard this record, this is the Four Men with Beard reissue, the only reissue that exists of this. The original goes for about $1,500, so I'm not about to pay that for it, but it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. I love this. Equally loved, in my opinion, is this Roy Harper record, Stormcock. This, however, is an original on Harvest. This is one of the best examples of 70s folk music, hands down. It's lucky enough to score this for not very much money, and it's in beautiful condition. It's got a textured cover and all. It's lovely. The wonderful Henri Texier Varesh, who was a hipster back in the day. I think he invented hipsters. Look at him. Yeah, plays double bass, oud, and vocals. Very simple, stripped down music, and sort of a folk jazz of sorts, but very, very, very inventive, endlessly inventive. In fact, with minimal means. Beautiful. I think Amir and Varesh are of the same kind of quality. Here is a post-punk record by a band called Dallas Carr. They're waking out. Dallas Carr is Mick Kahn and Pete Murphy. So half of Bauhaus and half of Japan. Yeah? Good. Good record. Sort of like new wave-ish, post-punk. Nice record. Nothing to write home about, but nice record. A couple of singer-songwriter records that I enjoyed during the week. Five Lives Left by Nick Drake. I'm going to talk too much about it. And the ever, ever amazing Songs for Beginners by Graham Nash. This, for me, is the best Crosby, Stills, Nash side project. I think it's the best example. For me. I'm not talking about everybody else, but for me, it's the best. It's the one I like the most. And then I've got two or three more. Two more. I'll go quickly because one of my favorite sort of like late Britpop records, In It For The Money, Supergrass, 1997. I can remember clear as day when it came out. I was living in England that year, and this is a wonderful piece of music. Richard III, Tonight, Late in the Sky, Sun Hits the Sky, Late in the Day, sorry. And side 2 is amazing too. This is, I think, an original press. And a fantastic Pierre Akindenge, Africa Obota, some African soul folk, amazing records on Sarava. Okay, beautiful. Okay, that's all, folks. I'll see you on Saturday night. Take care.